Welcome, everybody, to That's Absurd. Please elaborate.
It just felt like it needed a theme song, but we have
one. We
one.
have a theme song.
Yeah.
You're probably talking over it right now.
Oh, sure, maybe.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we have an editor named Kyle, and he does a good job. And that leaves the two of us. I'm Julian Huguet.
I'm Trace Dominguez.
On this show, we take listener questions that are silly, absurd, weird, wacky, and then we actually research them. We try and find some science to actually attack and approach and find some sort of definitive answer, or barring that, at least a good story for your question.
My question this week comes from Peter. And Peter asked, why is it when you breathe like, it's cold, but when you breathe like, it's hot? Did you feel how hot that was?
I did.
I felt like,
I too have wondered this. I mean, I can test this for myself right now. It was pretty warm. It felt a lot cooler. Why is that? Trace, why?
Two things. Firstly, I said Peter, but when Peter submitted the question, they said their name was Tater, which I think is great. I want somebody to have their nickname be Tater and send us questions like this, because this is a great question.
Tater with a P. P-Tater.
like pterosaur. It's just...
Yeah,
Tater.
The P is silent.
Yeah. So Peter / Tater. Potato did elaborate. If you breathe on your hand with your mouth in an ooh shape, it feels colder than if you have your mouth in an ah shape. Why is that? Is it actually colder? Is it just your brain that thinks so? My guess is the same temperature, but your brain is tricking you and it's cold for the same reason that wind is cold, which I also don't understand. Love the show. Couldn't figure out a way to include whether that would solve anything, but if you can think of something that would make a difference, I'm all ears. Okay. The thing is, it is somewhat simple to think about, and Peter / Tater, Potato, sort of nailed it. So firstly, in case you're curious, when we're talking about breathing like it's hot, just in case for some reason you want to know the history of that the letter A, as in hot, like hot, letter A.
The Boston O.
The Boston O, as it's known. That letter comes from the Phoenician period and resembled the Hebrew name Aleph, meaning ox. And that form is thought to derive from an earlier symbol resembling the head of an ox. And then the letter was taken over by the Greeks in the form of alpha. And in the Phoenician alphabet, the letter stood for the species of breathing. Yeah. Funny. Isn't that neat? Also, funnily enough, it's always been the first letter of the alphabet for as long as we have a history of the alphabet, which maybe you already knew because you listened to our early episode about the alphabet and its order.
Very early episode, yeah.
Which Julian did a great job on.
Thank you. Shout out to Rob Words, the YouTube channel where he goes into all this stuff about how languages evolve. It's very good. It's one of my favorites.
Linguistics is so interesting.
So good.
Okay, so then the letter O, as in cold. But that doesn't really make sense because it would be cool. Is the fourth vowel of the modern alphabet, corresponding to the Semitic ain, which represented a breathing and not a vowel. So again, both are types of breathing, which then became letters, which is just cool. The Semitic form may have derived from an earlier sign representing an eye, like the body part.
The eyeball eye.
The eyeball, not the letter.
But not the letter I.
Right. So all of this makes sense. All those A's, they're sharp, right? Like an oxen horn. So when you go, you're blowing these minuscule oxen at your hand, and that, metaphorically speaking, pokes the skin, causing it to feel hot. That totally makes sense. And then all of the O's, they're rounded and bouncy like eyeballs, so they just roll off the skin. And also eyeballs are wet, and what happens when your hand gets wet? It gets cold. So there, I answered your question, Potato. That's it. A's are pokey and O's are rolly, and that's why I just want to say that this is what it sounds like when I hear wellness people talk science. That's what it sounds like. I was gonna say it sounds exactly like that.
Super woo. Like it had all the hallmarks of like a pseudoscience explanation of like some plausibility and some history thrown in, and then just like totally random connections that actually make no sense upon further investigation.
Yes. I do want to say that the etymology of the letters or whatever, that I did actually research, and then the other parts were just like the woo-woo part that I made up.
So you're saying there aren't tiny oxen that
every time you say the letter A, you're not spewing tiny ox horns out?
But I thought I breathe in and out oxen. right? That's oxygen. Oh my gosh.
You know what? You were close.
I've had it wrong this whole time. I thought the atmosphere was 20% oxen.
That's why it's so warm on our planet. Global warming is really a side effect of the beef industry. Yeah. Anyway.
Kind of. Part. Yeah.
Oh, God. Oh, no. We made it back to... This is, again, how wellness influencing happens. You just pull from all these things that they're close.
Yeah.
You're in the
and
ballpark.
Then you end with, buy my supplement that I'm selling because I care about you. I actually care, not the other...
Oh, you want to buy my oxen reduction supplement?
Yeah.
'Cause I'm going to sell it at the end of the episode. You can reduce the amount of oxen in your breath. And so when you blow your breath, it's less hot.
Guaranteed no oxen.
No oxen in your breath.
You
take this pill, you will have 0 oxygen, 0% oxen in your breath. It's amazing, actually. See what I did there? I created a problem, then I solved the problem, but I really didn't make any change at all.
Happen to be selling the solution. Isn't that so convenient? That worked out so well.
This has been a media literacy podcast within a podcast. Anyway, so...
This has been a gripe time corner.
Definitely gripe time.
Gripe time! Okay.
Let's do some griping. Okay, so let's talk first. Is easy. Everyone can do it right now. You open your mouth real wide. If you're at on a bus or something, maybe don't do it because there are other people around. Unless you're wearing a mask, I guess. But then it doesn't really work because you're trying to breathe on your hand.
Then you'll feel it fog up your glasses if you have glasses.
Open up your mouth wide and breathe onto your hand like this. And it feels warm, right? Mm-hmm. That's because moist. The air that you're breathing out has been warmed by your core body temperature.
Yes.
Everyone might know, listening to this podcast, what basic research is. Julian, do you want to define basic research? Could you do a concise definition, do you think?
Yeah. So when you and your friends decide to form a band... somebody has to be the bassist.
Okay.
But you don't want, but they make you, and then you got to figure out which kind of bass do you want.
No, basic, not bassist.
Not bassist research.
Basic research.
Honestly, I don't know if I could give you a concise definition, Trace. Why don't you tell me?
Yeah, basic research is research that has no application in practicality, but is very important. So, for example, taking every person's body temperature in a data set. Body temperature isn't going to be applied to anything, but having that basic set of data is really helpful when you're doing other actual applied research, because then you can say, oh, well, we do this and it affects the base body temperature, which we know is X. Now, can it be incorrect sometimes? Is it something that we often have measured maybe 150 years ago and then just keep using, even though 98.6/35 or whatever is in the actual body temperature? Yeah. That's fine. 37 and a half or whatever it is.
No, exactly 37.
Exactly 37. Okay. Well, either way, that maybe is a terrible example, but taking the temperature of things, measuring things, how big they are, reading something over and over to ocean temperatures, heights of various mountains or trees, just getting a large set of data that doesn't necessarily mean anything on its own, but can be used to do other stuff. So in this case, we've been studying the human breath temperature for both men and women for a long time, and it is an average of 37.5 Celsius in the lung, or about 99.5 Fahrenheit, and it's exhaled between 32.4 to 35.7 Celsius, 90 to 96 Fahrenheit, so basically body temperature. And then I found a paper in The Lancet titled, quote, "Cold Hands, Warm Heart," from 1998.
Can't lose? It has to end with "can't lose," right?
It didn't end. It wasn't. They weren't ready. They weren't ready
They
yet.
didn't know about, was it Friday Night Lights?
Friday Night Lights, which I've never seen.
I haven't, but I just know that thing that they say about full eyes, clear eyes, full heart. I just know it ends at "can't lose." That's it.
Yeah, it can't lose. Cold hands, warm heart, can't lose. I like a lot, actually.
Football coach. Listen, kids, full eyes. No, clear
full
eyes.
Full stomach, clear.
No, Visine. No. Wait, we can't lose. Guys, we can't lose. Let's go.
We're not going to lose.
Go team.
Just get out there and do your best and have a good time. And it doesn't matter if you win or lose.
Oh, and another 87-0 drubbing.
For the Huget Heifers.
Go fight Noxon.
Okay, so they used a sample size of about 219 people, and they measured 20 of those people reliably, which I think is hilarious. But what they found is a mean temperature for women was about 31 C, 87 Fahrenheit, compared with 32 C or about 90 Fahrenheit for men. So this paper was measuring hand temperature. So now we know breath temperature is about body temp, and then hand temperature is a little less. So the mean hand temperature for women is 31 Celsius, which is, not a lot lower than body temp, but a bit. And then the mean temperature of the hand for men was about 32 Celsius. That's 87 and 90, by the way. So when you breathe hot, core body temperature air slowly over your hand like this, that 4 Celsius or about 7 Fahrenheit degree delta change or difference between the two is pretty big. And so you can feel it as this hot temperature. So now for the ooh, in this case, I found another study of breath temps for men and women, an average of 37.5 C in the lung or about 99.5 Fahrenheit, exhaled between 32.4 to 35.7 Celsius or 90 to 96 Fahrenheit. Right. So basically body temperature. And then, of course, then I had to compare that to the Cold Hands, Warm Heart paper of 1998, which the mean temperature of women was 31 C at 87 Fahrenheit, and compared with men, which is 32 C or about 90 Fahrenheit.
Trace, come back to me. You're doing the research spiral that sometimes we do.
I guess Okay, well, I just said the same things twice. You're right. Okay. So let's just jump to the end. So the breath temp of the whoo is also 36 Celsius. Your breath temperature is the same whether you're going ah or whoo. The breath coming out your body,
but
same
feel different. Trace,
same
when
breath.
Go whoo, feel different than go ha. Why feel different then if go whoo and go ha, same temperature?
So this was an exercise in science. Okay. Spoiler alert. Some people hear this question, the haaaaa, and they assume somehow that the air has cooled itself, or that your lip shape or mouth shape somehow changes the air, making it cooler. But the air is the same temperature. It's coming from the same place, no matter how you're blowing it. But even though it's the same temperature, there is one thing that is quite different, and that is its speed.
Right.
So the most satisfying answer comes from the world of both biology, where we know the temperatures of the different things, including the temperature of the hand and the breath, but also from physics. Some engineers on Stack Exchange, hilariously, were debating this. We've already picked on wellness people. Now I'm going to pick on engineers. I love me an engineer. They're the best.
Okay.
They're
I'm
also
studying to be one, so yeah,
hilariously overconfident about their skills. There is nothing more amazing than somebody in engineering or physics who says, yes, but I understand the whole universe, and thus I should be able to answer every question about everything that everything has ever been put together. So then they were like trying to define why this happens.
Is that not us on this show?
It is. But we cite other people. We don't just be like, well, obviously.
I know. Right, yeah.
Okay, let me make fun of a very famous non-engineer named Elon Musk, who famously believed that if he could put a brain chip in your head, you would be like, well, it's just an engineering problem. I'll just put it in there, and then all of a sudden, it's going to work, and we're going to be communicating with our brains. And it's just, biology doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
We are not biomechanical mechanisms like a computer. We are a completely chaotic, wild system that doesn't behave based on simple engineering principles. So it's great to read engineers talk biology. I just find it hilarious every time. So I'm going to quote one of the engineers from this Stack Exchange. Quote, the Joule-Thomson effect to the effect of the entraining of more outside air when you purse your lips and blow, to the adiabatic expansion to evaporative effects due to increased air speed. Which is amazing because everything there is probably wrong, but it sounds so good. This is a sensory issue more than it is anything else. We are not hooing and haaaing onto an objective measuring plate. We are doing it onto our bodies. So if you do this onto your body, and again, your body is just a mess. You personally, Julian, your body is a huge mess.
It's true. My body is a wonderland that was condemned by the county. Like a broken down carnival where like
Yes.
Pennywise the clown probably lives.
From like a Simpsons Halloween episode.
Yeah, is what my Wonderland
There's
looks like.
a bubbling vat somewhere. We don't know what it is, but it's been there for a long
bubbling
time.
vat. 110%.
That's great.
An upside down skull and crossbones sticker is on it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But it's like slowly peeled off.
Yeah,
like it's
yeah.
hanging and then the wind blows and you can see that but we've already walked and tried to jump in the vat. Anyway, the body, some things barely work. The spine is stacked in such a way that it does work, but it's sort of like hacking, brute forcing bipedalism. It's not a great system. And one of my favorite things to talk about is our senses, because everyone learns that we have 5 senses. Julian, what are the 5 senses?
Sight, touch, smell, taste,
Can't lose.
umami. Can't lose. Sight, smell, touch, taste, hear, and can't lose.
Yeah.
Go
But
team.
we actually have so many more than that, right? Saying touch is reductive because we have mechanoreceptors that do all sorts of different things according to the tactual experience of objects. From 2008, we've got pressure, we've got fast and slow vibration, we've got stretch, we've got spatial orientation, we've got warmth and cold, we've got pain, and then we have light touch that doesn't deform the skin surface and texture, and we've got itch and tickle. Those are all things that are included under touch, but they are all distinct sensors within our skin. And you'll note the absence, one of my favorite sciencey facts, the absence of moisture sensors. We have no sense of whether we are wet or not. We cannot feel wetness. We infer it from temperature and pressure. But if the water is the same temperature as your body, we don't feel it at all unless it's got pressure, like enough of it is pushing on us that we can feel the kind of squishiness of it, which I just think is great. So in the case of ha and hooo, the sensory system is at an ambient temperature. So if we're on the one hand, we're thinking 31 to 32 C, and the sensors of the body are not measuring if the air is 35 C. They're only measuring the change in the heat moving into the body or out of it. They're not constantly being like, okay, so the temperature is currently at 35 Celsius. And then when you breathe on it, I feel that now the temperature is 37 Celsius, but only in these places. It can just tell that there's heat or not. We're not measuring in an objective way. So when we go ha, the warmer air is moving nice and slow. That slow air imparts heat to our hand. Mm-hmm. It moves around the hand. It kind of sticks to it. And the body registers that as an increase in heat moving into your hand. Then when you go hoo, it's the same temperature air, but due to the Venturi effect, which is a stream moving through a smaller area, you increase the velocity of the air, decrease the pressure of the air, also Bernoulli's principle. So as you have the speed of the fluid, in this case air increases, the pressure decreases, and that area of low pressure you've created pulls in ambient air from the room. And the body temperature air plus ambient air is cooler than your body temperature.
I was waiting for Bernoulli to show up.
Oh.
As an airplane geek, when we're talking about air moving,
Yep.
we're usually talking about Bernoulli.
Love that
A lot.
guy.
We talk about him a lot.
This is a Bernoulli Stan podcast for sure.
Yeah, we I drooly for Bernoulli.
We should put that on a t-shirt.
Yep, absolutely. But no, seriously, like, it's the principle by which lift is created, that and air being directed downward by the wing. There's kind of two things at work there. But, you know, you say as when speed goes up, pressure drops. But I also have to say, when pressure drops, so does temperature.
Right, yes,
It's
because
the
they're all
ideal gas
related.
law.
The ideal gas law.
PV
exactly.
equals
Yep.
nRT,
Yep.
right? And so the P on one side of the equation, if that goes down, but the other side of the equation, N, which is the number of molecules, and R, which is just a constant, if those don't change, then T also has to go down.
T also has to go down. Yeah, it's true. So by blowing and increasing the speed, you're decreasing the temperature. You're also entraining the air in the room. Your hand is not sensing whether the air itself has changed temperature, but it is sensing whether or not there's more heat coming to your hand in one of those two scenarios. And in the slower moving air, you can sense more heat movement into your hand. And your body registers the whoo as a loss of heat, which says cold to your brain, because you are moving all this ambient cool air and heat is moving from your hand into air, because heat is weird. So,
sensory perception's weird.
Sensory perception is weird?
Heat makes total sense to me.
Okay, engineer boy.
How we perceive heat does not.
Yeah,
ever.
that's
how we perceive things.
Yeah.
Right? Which I feel like is kind of the gist of this whole segment, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is 100% the gist of this whole segment. You are blowing the same temperature air into a smaller area, and so thus it changes temperature, but also into an ambient space. Now, if you were probably to blow it into a straw, it would probably feel very similar. Even if you breathed very slowly into said straw, it wouldn't probably feel as hot. But we'd have to do that experiment. If somebody does that at home, let us know how it goes. Could be really neat to figure out if that changes. This is one of those places where the reason I brought up basic research is no one is out there researching and maybe they should be, because it is such a simple thing that everyone can understand, and maybe we should try just like researching all the different ways you can breathe out and see how you can affect the temperature of the gases coming out of your body. The ones out of your face, Julian, not the other ones. That's a different experiment.
I'm still curious. Does the average temperature of a toot drop if I fart harder?
Someone will have to ask. We'll do this. We'll figure it out.
Think about that. Or if it's just squeaker, if it's
like
a smaller opening.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
That's a cool fart.
Versus the big.
Yeah.
I feel like those are hotter.
A diesel truck revving up on a cold day.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably warmer.
Diesel farts. Good band name. Anyway, why don't we all contemplate that while we take a break? Hello and welcome back to That's Absurd, Please Elaborate. I hope that break was great for you. It was great for me. I breathed on my hand for a while trying to figure out how the temperature changed, and I learned nothing. So I'm going to learn this instead. Julian, what question are you going to answer?
Funny enough, it's still related to temperature change, but with a spacecraft. My question comes from Adam, we've answered many of his questions, but I'm using your new question shuffler widget that you devised to pick it. I did not know who asked it. I saw it and I was like, this is great. And then it turned out to be from longtime listener and Patreon absurd administrator Adam. But Adam also has a delightful brain because so many weird questions come from Adam. And This is one of them. He asked, how much cheese could protect the space shuttle? Oh, yes.
What kind of cheese? Like a cheddar, like a hard parm, or are we talking like a soft brie?
You think I didn't look into cheese types? Look at me, right here.
I'm
right
sorry.
Here.
You're right.
You think
I apologize.
You're gonna sit there.
Look, this is I hate.
And you're gonna
suggest.
So you're gonna imply that I didn't consider different cheeses. Are you for real right now?
120 episodes, and this is our first fight.
Okay, so Adam says, in extremely nerdy college, we would make pizza rolls, and they would come out as half lava, half ice, as is tradition. We would joke that the cheese must have about the same heat capacity as the thermal shielding of a NASA rocket. Based on that dumb college thought, how much cheese would you need to replace the thermal shielding of a space shuttle with, say, a nice brie or a mozzarella? Or would you want a harder cheese? I assume Swiss or feta would be out because all those nooks would get way too hot.
Oh, okay.
Even Adam is considering cheese variety.
I'm going to hold a specific cheese in my head, and if you don't bring it up, I'm gonna smash you.
Okay.
Not in a Gen Z ways. Yeah, but I think this one specifically. Anyway, I'm going to say nothing.
Place your bets on what type of cheese I come up with. If you get the right one, email us or something. I don't know what we're going to do, but we'll say congrats on having like cheese ESP. Cheese SP.
Cheese
okay, so let's talk thermal protection systems, right?
Right.
The space shuttle thermal protection system is incredible. It is
famously incredible and also famously awful.
Yes, well, yeah. Yeah, I was going to get to that, but there's some bad things about it. But let's focus on the good, okay? Let's first talk about the problems we're trying to solve here, right? You have the space shuttle, which is a very large vehicle, right? That's up in space, going very fast.
Yes.
Going about 8 kilometers a second, right?
That is fast.
So count a 1/1000 and the space shuttle will have traveled 8 kilometers in that time, okay? It's going really fast. It's coming back in to the Earth. It's encountering our atmosphere, and it's heating up, right? Like everything coming in and smacking a bunch of gas, it's suddenly experiencing all this friction. It's generating all this heat that it wasn't before, and it gets hot. Now, the design of the space shuttle was such that it was actually intentionally kind of blunt, if you can believe it. You ever look at the front of a space shuttle and you're like, that nose is kind of chunky, right?
Yeah, I've seen all 4 of the space shuttles. The best one's Florida.
Well, my personal favorite is the one local to me here in Southern California, which is the Endeavour shuttle.
Have you seen it since it's stacked?
No, I haven't.
I want to go see it so bad. You can see it from the highway. It's so cool.
They're changing the display of it, so it's going to be actually mounted to, the fuel tank and solid rocket boosters and vertical, like in its launch configuration.
So
and they're
good.
literally building a building around it down here at the California Science Center. Very awesome. And it's down here because, in part, it was assembled not too far from here in Palmdale, California, because that's where all the shuttles were built. SoCal, huge aviation hub, if we've never talked about that. I'm sure we have a million times.
No. I don't actually think either of us care much about aviation. We're not that into it.
Neither. Between you and me, zero interest. Anyway, so why is it blunt?
Why is it blunt?
Why is that nose all bulbous? What's going on there? As an object gets pointier, right? Like a high-speed jet. Think of the SR-71 Blackbird, those things, right? The shock wave gets closer to that point. The shock wave that it's generating as it moves through the air and all the air molecules start bunching up, right? Because it's traveling much faster than the speed of sound and the air can't get out of the way, right? This shock wave gets attached to a point, but if it's nice and round, like the front of the shuttle, right, a nice, smoother, bigger curve, then the shock wave is separated, and you have a boundary layer of air between the shock wave that's very hot as 20,000 Kelvin. The boundary layer is 2,000 to 6,000 Kelvin.
Oh, that's, hot, but
Hot, but much cooler, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of why the shuttle's nose is so bulbous. Now, the nose, you might have noticed, is not the black tiles or the white tiles or white blankets that the rest of the shuttle are covered in. What color is the nose of
It's like a gray.
the shuttle? It's a gray, and so are the leading edges of the wings.
Yeah, they are. I always wondered why they were a different color. And I went to space camp. You'd think I would know, but I don't remember. I was 11. Okay, Mom? Stop asking me.
Let me fix this childhood trauma for you real quick. The shuttle's nose and the leading edges of the wings and certain other parts of it aren't these tiles that I'll talk about momentarily. They're made of what's called reinforced carbon-carbon.
Reinforced carbon-carbon.
Carbon-carbon.
Got it.
And so reinforced carbon-carbon is basically carbon fiber, right? It's like a weave of carbon that's layered many times and with resin. And then it's heated in a vacuum to remove all the hydrogen from it. So when it's re-entering in the Earth's atmosphere, the hydrogen doesn't combine with oxygen and ignite and burn and stuff. It's just pure carbon. And it gives it incredible heat resistivity. So it's able to withstand the most heat that the shuttle is going to encounter on its way back into the atmosphere.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Pretty cool. But the downside of the reinforced carbon-carbon is, relative to the other insulation on the shuttle, it's heavy. And weight matters with spacecraft. Trace, why does weight matter with spacecraft?
The rocket equation. The heavier it is, the more you have to lift. The more you have to lift, then the more fuel you need, and then the heavier it is, and you end up in this weird and awful just fight.
Yes, right?
With math.
That is the most often cited issue with shooting stuff up into space. But consider this about the shuttle. It has to come down again.
Right. So it's going to be moving faster if it is heavier.
It's not that it's going to be moving faster. It's that it's going to have more kinetic energy.
So
because mass is part of that equation. That's right. So the equation for kinetic energy is 1/2 mass times velocity squared. So the more massive something is, the more kinetic energy it has. Why is this important? Trace, what is the principle of conservation of energy in physics.
It's a principle.
Yeah, it's the guy who runs physics high school, obviously.
It's Mr. Belding, but at physics school instead of at what is it? Wildcats? What is the Saved by the Bell?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was High School Musical because every friggin' fictional high school is the Wildcats for some reason. So the principle of conservation of energy in physics is that energy isn't created or destroyed, right? But it does change forms, right?
Yes.
So the shuttle, as it's orbiting around the planet, it's got a lot of kinetic energy. And so where does that go when it's coming back in re-entry? The shuttle uses friction to turn that kinetic energy into thermal energy. And it's literally the same thing the brakes in your car are doing. When you're driving fast, your car's got a lot of kinetic energy. You want to slow down. The little calipers clamp down on the brake rotor, right? And they just squeeze it. And there's a lot of friction there. And those brake pads heat up. And then the heat gets carried away by the air, right? They have to be ventilated. But if they get too hot, the brakes will fail. You'll boil the brake fluid in your brake line. You'll get gas in your hydraulic line. And then all of a sudden, you're going to discover your brakes don't work at all. So, be careful when braking on a hot day.
Or when driving too fast.
And driving too fast, yeah, all that. And not giving your brakes sufficient time to cool down. This is a problem some race cars have. If there's
that's
circuit,
what I was thinking about. Yeah.
If there's a circuit with short straightaways so the brakes don't get a lot of air through them to cool down, they can overheat. It's an engineering challenge for Formula One teams. It's all the same. It all applies everywhere. Yay, physics.
It's cool.
Physics is cool. Okay, shuttle's got to turn all that kinetic energy into heat, but the lighter the shuttle is, the less kinetic energy it's going to have. So you want insulation around it that's as light as possible. And that's where they came up with the tiles that famously cover the shuttle. And these things are so cool.
They are really amazing. Really incredible bits of engineering.
They are designed to last 100 flights. They can withstand temperatures up to 1,260 degrees Celsius, which is about 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit. And they have great thermal shock properties. You lived in cold, snowy climates. Still do.
I currently do.
Have you ever seen somebody pour hot water on a windshield on a cold day to
God,
defrost
I've never
it?
seen anybody that silly.
Have you heard of it?
I have heard of it happening, and I would, don't do that.
What happens?
It would break it. It would break everything. It would be bad. Right. It would be bad.
That's thermal shock. The glass does not have good thermal shock properties. And so, it just shatters.
I think another good example is you have a very hot, say, coffee mug or something that just had something very hot in it. Maybe you had your pasta water or whatever it is that was maybe just boiling. You pour it out, and then you pour cold water from your sink, and your coffee cup or whatever it was in cracks or explodes.
Exactly.
That is the same idea.
Right. So the tiles, you'll remember, are coming from space where they can be as cold as negative 160 degrees Celsius.
That's cold.
Yeah. Heating up in a pretty short amount of time to 1,200 degrees Celsius.
Whoa.
You got to make sure they don't crack.
See, this is where we come into that temperature delta. That is a big delta.
That's a big delta. That's a big old swinging delta. So there are, on the shuttle, 24,300 of these tiles. Okay?
Right. And they're not very big. They're the size of your palm.
Exactly.
They're quite small.
They're quite small. They cover the whole thing. Later shuttles, they replaced a lot of the white ones with these blankets, which were made out of basically the same material, but they were made in such a way that they're more of a flexible blanket than a solid tile, right? And they also changed over the lifetime of the shuttle. They introduced different coatings to make them tougher or more resistant to shattering, that sort of thing.
Right.
But basically, I'm going to go with the base tile when I'm doing a lot of these calculations, which was the LI 900 tile. Okay?
Yeah.
And these tiles are made up of ceramic fibers that were mixed together with water, and then they're poured into a big cubic mold. They're squeezed to get rid of a lot of that water, and then they're warmed up and finally fired to completely get rid of the water. And what you're left with is this weave, this mesh, this matrix of these ceramic fibers that are only about 10% of the total volume of the brick. And the other 90% of it is empty space.
I've never held one, but I've seen them held, and they are just super light. Not like aerogel light, the lightest stuff.
Aerogel's 99% air.
Yeah, But they're quite light. It's like a very lightweight foam, which is pretty amazing and absorbs so much heat.
Yeah. So Adam, when you say Swiss might be bad because of the nooks and crannies, I would argue that actually the empty space in the Swiss may be an advantage because heat doesn't conduct well through those empty spaces, right? I did the math, by the way. The shuttle, completely empty, weighs about 78,000 kilograms. So 78 metric tons, right?
Big.
4,700 of those kilograms are the tiles, which, considering it's covering the entire exterior, it's not that much for something that looks like a brick, right? A lot of different individual things about these tiles make them terrible at conducting heat, right? The fibers that make them up are thin and they're long, and so heat has to travel, by conduction through those fibers, and it doesn't do so very well because of that shape. They're also of a particular size and thickness, so when they radiate infrared light, it scatters it a lot. It doesn't direct it through the tile very well. It sends it in all directions, and so that's other method of conducting heat, radiation, that's negated by and large. And the long twisting path of the fibers also makes conduction harder. And finally, that empty space in between them, that makes sure that it can't also conduct through convection, right? Because there's no gas once it's in space, right? All the air that might be in between that comes out. It does make them very sponge-like. So, if it's going to rain, that's a problem.
The space shuttle can't get wet?
It has to spend 3 days being waterproofed before launch. Technicians go in with a special coating that they put in between the cracks of the tiles, and it goes in and has a chemical reaction with the moisture and boils it out.
Whoa,
and
cool.
Keeps it out. But that I know
space is cool.
People who develop these things are awesome.
Space stuff is awesome.
But that coating gets burned up on re-entry, and so you have to reapply it every time. And of course you have to...
Just like sunscreen.
Yep. Always wear sunscreen.
And reapply.
If you want to be like the space shuttle,
reapply.
This is the same thing.
Same thing.
Also, the tiles all have to be inspected every time.
Yes.
So even though the great innovation of the space shuttle was its reusability, it takes a lot to go to space safely.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
Yes.
And as you alluded to, sometimes these tiles failed and sometimes the results were tragic. The Space Shuttle Columbia disaster in 2003 happened because a piece of carbon hit and knocked off a bunch of tiles, and that left the space shuttle's aluminum skin exposed underneath it. And aluminum can only get up to about 177 degrees Celsius before it fails. That's the whole point of these tiles, right? If any heat gets to that aluminum skin underneath, that's the end of the shuttle. And that's what happened to Columbia in 2003.
Yeah.
And part of the issue is, these tiles, because the body underneath is still warming up and expanding a little bit, they're basically just glued on there. And if something hits them, they can knock them off. Or they can shatter.
Which is exactly what happened, yeah.
Yep. So, you'll also notice, though, the shuttle's covered in 2 colors of tiles, right? Black tiles and white tiles. We've talked about why that might be the case before. Do you remember?
Yeah, the black ones should absorb heat more efficiently, and the white ones should reflect things a little better. Right.
The black ones are getting heated by friction with that boundary layer. And so that's the main source of what's warming them up. If they're painted black, they will re-emit that heat as infrared light more efficiently than if they were a lighter color. The white tiles, though, they're just getting heated up by the shock wave, which is literally tearing apart oxygen and nitrogen molecules in the air. And it's creating a plasma that's emitting light. And the light's hitting, everything, but it's also hitting these white parts. And so the white parts are better reflecting that away before absorbing it. Right? But the black ones, they get heated up by just being rubbed really hard, and then they emit infrared light more efficiently. So being black actually helps keep those cooler.
I wonder why they weren't blue.
Based on where they are.
Like a very dark blue, then. They must have tried it. I'm sure they tried it based on what they learned. Because what you were alluding to before is about the SR-71 Blackbird, and we're talking about how these really fast things were actually like a very dark blue.
Well, at speed, it turned more blue. It was more obviously blue, right?
I wonder if these did something else. if they changed color. I mean, they turned orange. They were very hot.
It was quite warm. Yeah, they were emitting light in the visible spectrum by the time they were warmed up enough, right? Because they were very, very hot. But the tiles underneath are still the same tiles, just the coating is different. They're either painted with a white or a black ceramic coating, just based on where they're going to go on the shuttle.
Yeah.
Okay. So, with all this in mind, I started thinking...
Let's get to the cheese already.
Let's get to the cheese.
The cheese of this problem. Some would say the meat, but I'm thinking the cheese.
This could be quite a complicated problem because cheese, unlike these tiles, is going to heat up to the point that it melts.
Right.
Maybe even boils.
Sure.
And then it's going to leave the spacecraft. It's not going to stay attached anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
The spacecraft would be very gooey.
Yeah. It's gonna be quite gooey. It's more akin to the way that spacecraft were shielded before the shuttle, right? With what are known as ablative heat shields.
Yeah, that would flake off as they were heated up.
Yeah. I did a little digging on ablative heat shields, by the way. So much cooler than I realized. It's not just that they're burning off. It's that down below the outermost surface of it that's getting exposed to the heat, there's material there that when it heats up, it turns into a gas. And the gas flows up and over that charred exterior and helps cool it. And it thickens the boundary layer in front of it. And so that also cools that boundary layer.
Space stuff is so cool.
Yeah.
It's
super
just
cool.
One of those things. When you're digging into biology, the further you dig, the more interesting it gets, right? You get this like, oh, wow, leaves are neat. Let's look at them really small. Oh, wow, there are all these little cells. Oh, let's look inside the cells. Oh, my gosh, there's so much happening. Let's look inside what's happening. Oh, my gosh, there's so much happening. You know, the difference is you do that with spacecraft, and you're like, wow, that spacecraft looks really cool. Let's look into it. Wow, it's covered in tiles. What about these tiles? Wow, these tiles are really neat. And all of it was made by people, as opposed to like all of it was... Biology is still fascinating, but it was like evolved from millions of years of practice. This was like invented by a dude named Charles and a woman named Mary, and like they just figured it out, and it's just this is awesome.
It's the product of very, very smart people trying to solve a challenge that nothing has ever encountered before, right? And so you can go so many layers deep on like how ingenious every little solution is to make this frickin' thing work.
Yeah.
That's what I love about learning about all of these things, right? I'm always just amazed at how clever people can be. And I love that about us.
Yes.
Good thing for us. I think in reality, if we were to coat the space shuttle in cheese, it would behave more like an ablative shield. There are some similarities between the compounds of, ablative heat shields and cheese, from what I could tell.
Yeah.
But that also makes the math a lot more difficult.
I think one of the similarities between ablative heat shields and cheese is when they are consumed, you create gas.
What a sentence. Just banger of a sentence all around. Just the lead in, just the hook. So good. All-time sentence. Okay. So, I'm going to simplify it though. I'm going to just treat it like a high school physics problem. And just to start even, I'm going to say, okay, imagine we took the shuttle at its empty mass coming back, right? And the kinetic energy that has, and the potential energy that it's turning into kinetic energy as it falls towards the Earth, right? And we convert all that into thermal energy.
Okay.
And then we figure out how massive a block of cheese we would need to absorb all that thermal energy from the temperature the shuttle starts at to the temperature the cheese melts, at which point it would be slewing off of the shuttle. Okay? How much to get that cheese to the melting point? That's how I approach that. So, for this, I need to know some thermal properties of cheese. And as always, when I type these things into the old Google box, I was amazed to find that somebody has tabulated these things.
No. I
found
basic research. Very important.
I found a PDF called cheese_0_0.pdf, which I have now shared with you.
Oh, I'm ready for this. I am pumped.
And it is titled Cheese, revised 2008, Thermal Properties.
Oh. This
And
is
it's got-
camembert.
Yes.
Moisture content 51.8, protein 19.8, fat carbohydrate.
Right.
Specific heat above freezing. This is great. Latent
Specific
heat of
heat below
fusion.
freezing,
Oh my
yeah.
god. This is so good.
Yeah.
Who did this? Who
Apparently,
is my hero
the
today?
WFLO Commodity Storage Manual. And it does kind of make sense. Like, we need to refrigerate and ship cheese around, and it's good to know the thermal properties of cheese.
The WFLO is the World Food Logistics Organization. It is part of the GCCF, the Global Cold Chain Foundation, a nonprofit education, research, and international development partner of the Cold Chain Alliance. And,
And if you need to know how cold your cheese is going to be, how big a refrigeration unit you're going to need on your cheesemongering van,
this is great.
these are the people to go to, apparently.
Wow.
So yes, I found this table. After carefully reviewing the different thermal properties of the 5 cheeses listed. Wait, how many are listed on here?
It looks like camembert,
1, 2,
cheddar,
3, 4.
cottage, uncreamed, cream,
9.
cheese? I assume
10.
cream, cheese. But then it also has granular, washed curd type, Colby, cream, hot pack, brick, blue, brie, Caciocavallo, Edam, Gorgonzola, Gouda, grated dried mozzarella Gruyere, Liederkranz, Limburger, Parmesan, pasteurized processed cheese. Wow, this is great.
There's a lot, but the ones that the thermal properties are listed for, specifically, there are 9. So
Yeah.
after reviewing the 9 cheeses on this list, I settled on, drumroll please, Kyle, Camembert.
Ooh,
And not 'cause
camembert.
Not because it's the first one on the list. I'll explain why. But what cheese did you pick?
The one that I thought you would get into, like the one I thought would be really good, is halloumi. And I'm like, Julian had to look into this Greek staple.
Halloumi?
Oh my God, do I know more about Greek cheese than you? That hurts. Your mom's gonna be, Roxanne's gonna be pissed.
What, you think you're fatter than me?
Gouda one.
Ah. Halloumi, a cheese originating... Oh, it's Cypric. It's from Cyprus.
Okay,
We don't recognize that they're fine, I'm sure.
that seems like it.
That's pretty far east, all right? That's
funny. I just thought halloumi, because it's considered a grilling cheese, it like is supposed to hold heat well, and then it turns black, and you get a really good Maillard reaction. You can
char.
like turn it into a charred, delicious thing that you then put on a salad, or just.
Well,
and it's also
dang.
squeaky. It's like dense. I don't know. I just thought.
Maybe
Halloumi.
halloumi would be good, but I don't have specific figures for halloumi. I do have specific figures for camembert.
We need more basic research. More
Need
research
more
is
basic
needed.
research. Somebody tell me the latent heat of fusion of halloumi. Stat.
Please.
It's going to come in like a Greek envelope. Like anyway,
From Cyprus. And it's just
Cyprus.
going to say to Julian. And it's going to have a bunch of Greek swear words on it.
yeah, right. It's all Greek to me. Okay, the reason I chose camembert was, first of all, even though it's gooey and soft, it's not as totally soft as cottage, right? It's more structural integrity. I feel like if you put cottage cheese on the outside, that's just going to immediately all slide off.
Right.
Right? Whereas with camembert, I think we have a better chance of it actually staying on the vehicle.
There's somebody in a suit with a mask before the shuttle rolls out, spraying a coating on the cheese.
Right. I imagine, think of it this way. The rocket's got to go up, right? In which case, maybe a lot of the cheese would come off. You might have to apply it in orbit before coming back.
Whoa.
You might have to do a spacewalk.
Wow.
And heaven help you if one of the astronauts maybe is peckish and then eats through all your heat shield,
Wow.
right? And you can't make it back in.
Problems
That's
that
the next
you
space disaster movie.
Never would have even thought about,
Yeah.
These are the problems of our time. Complicated problems need complicated solutions.
This is Andy Weir. This is your next book.
All astronauts must be lactose intolerant. There you go. Solved the problem. No one's
Yeah.
going to eat the cheese.
Okay. Glad that's done. So, camembert, it's more solid than, say, cottage cheese, which has, I think, a few better numbers, but the specific heat of camembert below freezing, because, it's part of it is water in there. It's 51% moisture. So it's the specific heat's going to change above and below the freezing temperature of water. Below freezing, it's 3.34 kilojoules per kilogram degrees Kelvin. Specific heat, by the way, just tells you basically how much energy you need to apply to a given mass of something to warm it up a specific amount, right? So higher means more energy to heat it up.
Right.
Specific heat above freezing, 3.1 kilojoules per kilograms times degrees Kelvin. Kelvin doesn't have degrees. Kelvin. Okay.
Kelvin.
And latent heat of fusion, this is the amount of energy it takes to actually melt it. So once this cheese gets up to its melting temperature, you still have to put more energy in for a phase change. That's known as the latent heat of fusion. That's 173 kilojoules per kilogram. Okay? So I take all these numbers, and now I also have to figure out how fast the shuttle is going when it enters the atmosphere and how fast it's going once it's past its main heating phase, the maximum heating period, right?
Right.
In a typical shuttle reentry profile, this phase lasts for about 13 minutes, and the shuttle goes from traveling at about 7.8 kilometers per second to 3.8 kilometers per second. So it loses about 4 kilometers a second during the phase of maximum heating, right? On a real shuttle, this is when they have to carefully be balancing how steeply they're re-entering, right? If they're too shallow, they'll skip through the atmosphere and come out back above it again because the shuttle's got wings on it after all. It'll fly out.
Right.
If they're going too fast, the tiles on the outside won't be able to radiate heat away fast enough. Heat will penetrate through the tile down to the aluminum skin, and the shuttle will fail. So it's got to be carefully managed here, right? That's why it takes about this amount of time. That was the thinking behind it, right? But because I'm just dealing with a simple, like, this is how fast we're going before, this is how fast we're going after, I don't need to worry about all that stuff. I just plug in the math, 1/2 mass times velocity squared, and I figure out how much energy the shuttle is going to be converting into heat. And it is going to be converting...
Oh, man. You're laughing.
1.8 times 10 to the 12 joules.
Oh, my God.
1.8 terajoules of energy are being converted from kinetic energy to thermal energy.
That's a lot.
Now, here's the cool thing about the shuttle tiles, some more, is that only about 1 to 5% of that energy is actually being absorbed by those tiles, and the rest is being radiated away.
That is pretty cool.
That is cool. So the atmosphere is absorbing 99 to 95% of that energy.
Wow.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
That depends on the emissivity of the tiles. Would you believe it if I told you I found the emissivity of cheese?
I mean, I believe it because you said it, but if you had said, would you think that someone had studied the emissivity of cheese, I would have said no.
People did this basic research, apparently. The emissivity of a base Li 900 tile, and emissivity is a ratio. It's comparing how much it emits to what's known as a black body, like a perfectly black object that emits, the maximum possible.
Right.
The emissivity of an Li 900 tile is 0.88.
0.88.
Higher is better.
Okay.
The emissivity of camembert is 0.91. It's better.
That's better.
It's better than the base tile.
That's actually surprising.
Isn't that incredible? Again, that's a white Li 900 tile. Yeah. The black, I assume, is even better, probably in the high 90s, but I couldn't find a figure on that. So the camembert is going to be absorbing more energy, but I'm going to be super generous to this cheese and say that it's only absorbing 1% of the energy that the shuttle is converting into heat, okay?
Got it.
So if it's only absorbing 1% of that, I do the math. I'm taking my latent heat of fusion. I'm taking my different specific heats depending on how hot it is. I'm taking my starting temperature of minus 160 C, getting it up to 40 degrees C where it melts and slews off. If you had the ability to take 1% of the energy the shuttle turns to heat, right? Basically the amount of energy the shuttle absorbs on reentry, and you could just direct it into a block of camembert cheese, you would melt 22,000 kilograms of cheese.
That's a great fondue party.
That's a heck of a fondue party.
How many crackers do I need?
Oh my, don't make me do this math. 22,000 kilograms of cheese. So about 28% of the shuttle's empty mass in just cheese alone. Now, again, I didn't do the more complicated math of actually slapping the cheese on the shuttle. That's going to make it more massive.
Change the
It's going to add to the kinetic energy.
Oh, God, it's
right?
so complicated.
Now, I did the math also assuming that all the mass of the cheese stayed on the shuttle despite melting, which I think is unrealistic. Right. We really are asking a lot of this cheese.
We sure are.
And that would take 29,000 kilograms of camembert cheese to absorb all the energy.
Wow.
29 metric tons of cheese.
How much camembert is made annually?
I bet so much more.
360 million wheels in France. How much is one wheel of cheese? How much
if it's
is
not even a
one
kilogram.
Wheel of cheese mass? Parmesan weighs 80 pounds, 72 pounds. So 70. Let's say 75 pounds.
Honestly?
Which is
barely a drop in the fondue pot.
We'll say 35 kilos. So 35 kilos times 360 million is 1.25 billion.
Yeah.
Kilos of cheese.
This may be
made in Normandy annually.
More efficient insulator than the tiles if we just spray on a camembert coating.
Just get the cheese. Can we cheese whiz this? Can we whiz it? I want to whiz it. For those Europeans, I don't know if you have cheese whiz. It's cheese in a can. It's gross.
They don't.
You don't want it.
They don't.
We don't. Nobody wants it.
They have things like healthcare. They
don't need cheese in a can.
They don't. Honestly, probably working opposite ways to healthcare is cheese in a can. So, okay.
Wow.
So, of course, though, let's bring this back to the original source of the question, which was, microwaving, I assume microwaving these pizza rolls and getting your hot areas of cheese and your cold areas of cheese. The real reason that happens isn't because the cheese is such a great thermal insulator, right? It's doing such a good job of holding up that heat transferring through the cheese. Trace, why when you microwave something, why sometimes in microwave you get ha and sometimes hooo parts of microwaved
in the same
right next to each other?
Why does Hot Pocket lie to me?
Yeah.
And it's actually just hot on the it's hot rind pocket.
Very honest. There are pockets of hot in there.
Yeah.
And then pockets of cold.
Yeah, pockets of ice. Because microwaves don't heat evenly. It's a single magnetron gun typically firing into a big metal box. That magnetron gun is we believe, exciting the water molecules within your food. So it's bouncing around in there, losing energy as it does so, and which is why there's a rotating plate so that different parts of your food are exposed to the magnetron gun at different intensities. And then it heats it from the outside in. So it takes longer. You want to heat it at a lower energy for longer if you really want to make sure to get the middles in.
Yeah.
Is that what you're looking for?
Basically, yeah, the microwave, it's waves, like you said, right? The waves are creating electric fields inside the microwave that are causing water molecules to rotate back and forth. And the bigger the amplitude of the wave, right, the harder it snaps back and forth, the hotter it gets. But it's inside that closed contained cavity, so the waves become standing waves. They interfere with each other, and at certain points, the amplitudes add to each other and get bigger, and at certain points, they cancel out. And at those points where they cancel out, there's no movement of the water molecule. It doesn't heat up. That part stays cold.
Right. That's why you need the rotating plate. Ideally, the rotating plate will expose all the different parts of the food to the standing wave. But that's not... Pizza rolls are small. Maybe some of them just don't get there,
I just came up with the dumbest microwave solution, but hear me out.
I'm ready.
You ever go to, the county fair and you see those, 3 gimbal... things you can get strapped into for usually extra tickets, not included in the price of admission, and they just rotate you every which way?
Oh yeah, the 6-axis simulators.
Yeah.
We did that at Space Camp. Comes from NASA.
Do you think there's a market for a microwave Hot Pocket?
What
gimbal?
A good microwave that would be.
I mean, you couldn't do like soups. It'd be
Well, you
it'd be a
could. You just have
disaster.
to make sure that they were very well contained first.
Yeah. Just something.
The 6-axis microwave.
I think we're onto something
This
here.
sounds futuristic. This sounds like a futuristic thing that they invented in 1967 and tried to sell to people. The real question I have for you after all of this.
Yes.
Do you dip your pizza rolls in ketchup, or was that just me and my friends?
Oh, God. No. What kind of crime against the peninsula of Italy are you... The pizza roll enough is such an insult.
It's like it's a micro
And then
calzone.
I'm not even
it's
Italian.
a nano calzone.
My hand is making the Italian pinch, like, involuntarily. I'm like... I'm so mad at you, I'm becoming Italian.
Thanks for listening to this episode of That's Absurd, Please Elaborate. The show was created, written, and produced by me, Trace Dominguez.
That war criminal in the food wars. Ketchup?
And Julian Hewitt.
Just so gross.
This show was also edited by
You couldn't find marinara anywhere?
someone who probably also puts ketchup on their pizza rolls, Kyle Sisk.
No, he does not.
This
He's
show-
a man of culture and taste. How dare you?
This show was associate produced by Sabrina Capello.
She's not going to want to associate with us anymore.
Our show's music is thanks to Epidemic Sound.
Yeah, epidemic of putting ketchup on things. What the hell?
This is going to be the most listened to outro we've ever had.
No, they've already tuned out. It's just
That's
you
great.
and me giving
That's
you what you
really
deserve.
Thank you to the listeners who submitted questions featured in this episode. That would be Adam and Tater. If you'd like to submit a question, look for the form down in the show notes.
You can put your potatoes in ketchup. That's fine.
I do,
Although
actually.
I think still gross.
I
I
do
think
love-
personally still gross. Put a little mayo, like the Belgians
Wow.
do it.
What are
they
you-
created it. I feel
Okay.
like they know what's best.
Email us at hello@that'sabsurdshow.com. Visit our website, that'sabsurdshow.com/ask, or call us on the phone 302-TAPESHO. We could not do the show without your questions, and now we can randomize them thanks to this silly little tool that I built. So I'm really excited to be able to actually see even more of your questions through this randomizer.
Special thanks to our listeners who subscribed to our Patreon. Our Patreon votes on polls, so they get to select when we are trying to be even more fair, when we know, like, oh, that was a question submitted by a repeat asker. I have to make sure I'm not intentionally picking it. Sometimes we intentionally stray away from it, and then the Patreon ends up picking it anyway, because sometimes they're just really good questions. Thank you to our absurd administrators over on the Patreon, Adam. Yes, Adam, whose question we just answered. Les, Austin, Jonathan, Dan, Sabrina the Brain, Hannah, Apothecarian, Christina, Atomic Straw, Brian, Shane, who just upgraded to Absurd Administrator. Thank you, Shane.
Thanks, Shane.
And Metric Ton of Batcat.
Amazing. Thank you for joining Metric Ton of Batcat, because I'm so happy that we get to say that name over and over again.
What is that?
I don't know,
How
but
many
it's great.
metric tons of Batcat to insulate a space shuttle? You know what I'm saying? Also, happy 3-month anniversary to our ridiculous researcher, Nick. Thanks for being here and sticking with us. And of course, welcome Metric Ton of Batcat, as you mentioned. Thanks to the support of our patrons over on Patreon, we get to do fun stuff like traveling for live shows and supporting the show in general. We appreciate you, and thank you so much for wanting to give us your hard-earned money for this objectively stupid endeavor.
Leave us a review if you haven't, wherever you're listening now. Reviews tell other people that we are not annoying, and that's important to us on a personal level. If you want to leave us a review wherever you're listening, it's really important to us if you do that, because, again, in all seriousness, it tells other people it's worth their time. We've been featured in a few different places on Apple Podcasts, which is so awesome, in Ireland and Belgium and Australia and New Zealand recently. So if you live in those places and you've reviewed us, hey, amazing, thank you. We really, really love to read your reviews, especially if they make fun of us. And so, feel free to throw those in there if you want. If you want to see clips from the show and share them with your friends, you can go to That's Absurd Show on Instagram or TikTok now, or YouTube. We have a few different things that we're doing. Thanks, Sabrina, for sticking to those all things and making them good. And a special thanks to those listening on Nebula, where you can listen to the show, and just by listening to it, you support it. So go to Nebula at go.nebula.tv/That's Absurd Show and try it out. You can get an annual subscription for a discount because we are part of Nebula, and we get credit if you join, and we get credit if you listen. So really awesome way to support the show. Bingo card results, Julian? Did anybody win bingo?
Okay, I have a suspicion that Shane may be being dishonest with us.
Oh no, Shane!
Shane has not just bingoed or double bingoed. Shane has filled out the entire card.
Oh.
I don't think we say these things that often.
I mean, in multiple episodes, maybe.
Are we this predictable?
You made a bingo card based on things we've said. So
It's
I
true.
think maybe.
It's true. And Teresa's really close, but she needs me to wave a magic wand, which I guess I kind of did with the shuttle. So Teresa, this is going to count as bingo for you when you hear this.
Congratulations, Teresa.
Congrats, Teresa, and congrats, Shane, on your... Hold on, how many bingos is this? 4x4, and then there's 2 more, right? So that's an 18 bingo. What's...
Wow. I don't know.
Octecatuple. I don't even know.
Bingocto. I don't know. The Octo Bing.
The Octo Bing.
But as we say at the end of every single one of our episodes, we have this catchphrase, we just say it every time. Diesel farts, hands can't lose.
Oh, are you a big fan of Fart Day Night Lights?
Oh, God. That's funny. No, I'm a big fan of dipping pizza rolls in ketchup.
No, you monster.
I did just Google what's a good dipping sauce for pizza rolls and found a 5-year-old Reddit that says garlic butter, which, great, ranch, hot sauce, Alfredo, what? Where do you just go get Alfredo sauce? Sour cream, if you count that as a dip.
It's his sauce.
Nacho cheese, marinara, blue cheese, and ranch. Somebody, I think the genius amongst these people, said ranch and sriracha, when you swirl them together with the pizza roll, you create sriracha.
Like sriracha wasn't hard enough to say.
I know. Sriracha is pretty great, though. And good band name.
Good band.
Straight Tabasco for me. Marinara sauce. And of course, this just reinforces that ranch is the universal condiment. Somebody even wrote it really big in all caps. Anyway, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week with another brand new episode of this crazy thing that we call a show.